Peace and grand rising to the sovereign, original, indigenous, natural divine, Moorish, American. Eggleston, Pauline, Denise Ritchie, in capitis diminutio nolo, in propria persona sui juris, in proprio solo, and in proprio heredis, no United States Corporation Company citizen, nor their agents, principals, heirs, assigns, nor any derivatives thereof, has personam jurisdiction over the Moors. I just wanted to do a quick informational video on enforcing the sovereign law for the land by the heirs in our territory with regard to face masks and really all that's going on in our territory. We are standing, we are governing the de jure Moorish National Republic federal government and the de jure sovereign Moorish American Consulate. We are doing our job in our territory, governing as we should. And so I wanted to share with you briefly a way to peacefully enforce the sovereign supreme law of the land with regard to masks. So, for starters, what I've been doing in my territory with regard to this demonstration is I have gone to the King County Corporation's website, and I pulled up the codes and statutes that they have placed on the public record with regard to masks. And I would encourage all Moors who are governing in their territories, which is all of us. We are the governors of our land. We are the presidents of our land. We are the imperial divan of our land, and all of the above. And so we have an obligation, a sovereign obligation to enforce peacefully the sovereign supreme law of the land. And we're going to do that by way of pairing, looking at the codes and statutes that the corporations have put on the public record. And we're going to enforce those codes and statutes that are in alignment with the Constitution and the treaty. We're going to enforce those, okay, so that we can take full advantage of this awesome opportunity that we have to go out into our territories and to get the citizens accustomed to seeing the government out in the territory. And we have just an awesome opportunity to get them accustomed to the turbans, fezzes, and our flag, and us coming. We are the law, and we have the law in our hearts, and it's coming out of our mouths. Okay, so I went to King County Corporation website and pulled up the codes and statutes, and I'll go ahead and share my screen with you with regard to those right now, so that you can see what it is that we are enforcing here in terms of the sovereign supreme law for the land. So let's pull that up. And see what we have. Okay. And we do want to pull that down and up. This. Okay. Okay, here we go. Let's pull this one up first, okay? So this is the one, this is the code and statute that the King County Corporation and the Seattle Corporation have placed on the public record with regard to masks, etc. And so here's what I've done. I've taken this code and statute and I looked through it thoroughly to see what they actually really are in attempting to enforce. And I found a couple of things that I thought, well, I can use these to enforce the sovereign supreme law for the land on those who are in our territories. So here is one of those parts in the code that has what they would call citizen exemptions with regard to wearing the face covering. So this tells them, you know, they're saying that these citizens do not have to wear a face covering for whatever reason. And each one of these codes and statutes that are put out by these corporations has some form of an exemption, and I'll show you a couple of examples of that we can enforce on the citizens, because we're not under these. We are simply saying this part of this is in alignment with the sovereign supreme law for the land, and this is what we are enforcing upon you as something that we know to be in alignment with the sovereign supreme law for the land where the sovereigns are concerned. So we're the sovereigns. We must enforce the Constitution because no one else has the authority to actually enforce it on the citizens. The citizens are supposed to be following it because they're under it. So here in this part of this code, it says, whereas there is a long history of racism, and we know that racism is not a thing, there's no such thing as racism, but for the sake of this demonstration, we'll read through it and then we'll put some clarity on it. Whereas there's a long history of racism and discriminatory policies that Native, people of color, immigrant and refugee, LGBTQ communities, homeless, and other marginalized communities have faced in Washington state that may impact an individual's ability to feel safe while wearing a face covering. So what they're saying is, with regard to the citizens, because of their history of, you know, racism and discriminatory policies, and again, we're not citizens and racism does not really exist because either you're the sovereigns for the land or you're a citizen. And we are not Native or people of color or immigrants or refugees or any of these other citizen labels that are placed on the citizens. And the citizens have agreed to these labels, okay? And since they've agreed to the labels, let's go ahead and enforce the sovereign supreme law for the land and any codes and statutes that are in alignment with that. So what I did in my territory is I took this directive to the grocery store and et cetera, anyone who was trying to enforce the face mask thing. I took this with me and I read this part to them, and there's a couple of other parts that I read to them that I'm enforcing on them and telling them I'm not under any of this, but for the sake of what you're doing, this is what you're under. So I told them we are not any of these. Even though this says that Native, people of color, immigrants, and refugee, LGBTQ, homeless, and other marginalized communities, they may not feel safe wearing a face covering, so they don't have to wear a face covering. Okay, if they don't have to wear a face covering, and we don't have to wear them anyway if we don't want to because we're the sovereigns, but just for your sake and those rules that you're going by, there are exemptions to your rule, even in your own codes and statutes that you're under. And we're going to enforce that code, that part of the code and statute we feel is in alignment with the treaties and the Constitution, whereby, and in this manner, it's in alignment because it says there are exemptions. We're not exempt. This never applied to us in the first place, but for the sake of what you're doing, you have to follow that right there. We're going to enforce that on you. And then we're going to say, we're the sovereigns and we're not going to wear them either. Okay? So now, there are a couple of other places in here that I wanted to point out to you as well, because I read this pretty thoroughly. And with regard to grocery stores, pharmacies, commercial retail stores, etc., because it seems that I've gotten several questions from the the heirs about these face masks and this whole face mask situation. And so and it's mostly about grocery stores. So with regard to the grocery stores, here at C, it says, this directive applies to any indoor public setting or outdoor public location where a person will be within 6 feet of another individual who does not share the same household and includes but is not limited to grocery stores, et cetera, et cetera. So now we know that even in the grocery stores, they have the 6 feet markings on the floor. Okay, and that's for the citizens. Again, that has nothing to do with the heirs. The grocery store itself is sitting on our land. So we're just going to enforce the sovereign supreme law for the land. And so with the 6 feet piece in place, you don't have to wear a mask. Okay, even by their standards, the citizens don't have to wear masks because they have the 6 feet in the grocery stores marked off. So this says where a person will be within 6 feet of another individual. But if the citizens obey that 6 feet piece, then of course the sovereigns can do as they will with regard to the mask. Okay, so we don't have to wear them, and the citizens should stay at least 6 feet away from us anyway, because there should be no, they should not be, all in our sovereign space, unless we command them to be in our sovereign space, and we're not going to do that. And that includes policy enforcers. So let's go ahead and get to the policy enforcer part of this directive. Now, here down at F, it says violation of this directive does not create grounds for residents, or law enforcement to stop, detain, issue a citation, arrest, intimidate, or harass individuals who do not comply with it. This directive may and should be used to educate, encourage, and persuade individuals to wear face coverings. And I know the heirs are, their flags are going up all over the place with regard to just this one part of this code and statute, because for many reasons, some of them being that it says violation of this directive does not create grounds for res ident, which res means property, ident means what you identify as. Okay, and that's for the citizens, not for the heirs. So heirs are not res ident. We don't identify as property. Res means property. And then where it says this does not create ground for residents or law enforcement. Well, we are the law, and we are enforcing the sovereign supreme law for the land. So those doing business with law enforcement are considered residents. They're citizens. Resident is another name for citizen. Okay? And the citizens, this does not create any grounds for the citizens to stop, detain, issue a citation, arrest, intimidate, or harass individuals who do not comply with it. Okay? So the citizens don't have to comply with this, and most certainly the sovereigns do not. But for the sake of keeping the peace on the land, that's why we are using these things and enforcing them on to those who would seek to violate the Constitution and the treaty. So again, this is just doing what we are commissioned by our ancestors to do, enforce the Constitution. And then it says right here in plain view, this directive may and should be used. That means that it's not a mandatory that they use it. It just says that it may, and it should be, or could be, or would be, maybe, but it's not the law. And that's another reason why those doing business as law enforcement cannot get involved with regard to the face mask piece. Even by their own standards, those doing business as law enforcement have nothing to do with face masks. So those out there, those who are unlawfully occupying by saying you can't come in here without a face mask, you're unlawfully occupying the land, and that's where the heirs go to the liens and court actions, etc. Okay. So by the same token, since those doing business as law enforcement cannot get involved in this, that means that they know it's not the law too. And they're just as much a citizen. They have to do what the rest of the citizens and res ident do. Okay, they can't get involved with that because they're actually not even supposed to be operating on our land. We're the law, so we don't need them. And that's not a war statement by any means. We're going to peacefully enforce the sovereign supreme law for the land. And this will assist in them transitioning into knowing that we are the ones that are enforcing the law, and we do not need their assistance at all with regard to our land. We're going to do it. Okay. We're not at war with anyone. We're at peace with everyone. And our getting out into the communities, and I mean, not the communities, but our territories, because community is not even our word. Us getting out into the territories and getting everyone accustomed to seeing who the real law and who the real government is. This is the prime opportunity. I think I'm very excited about this opportunity because we need to get out into our territories and get them used to seeing turbans and fences, enforcing the sovereign supreme law for the land. Okay? I'll pull up one more of these really quickly and then we'll conclude here. There is another directive here, a corporate directive that I wanted to bring up. This one is for Cleveland, Ohio territory. And so I had a more who asked me about, they seem to be having problems with these small businesses telling them that they cannot come in without a face mask. And so my suggestion to them, because we don't tell the sovereigns what to do, we just make suggestions, and then they do their study, and then they, according to their study and the things that they find in their studies, they enforce the sovereign supreme law of the land according to their understanding of it. Okay, so here, this was for, it says Butler, Cuyahoga, Franklin, Hamilton, Huron, Montgomery, and Trumbull County Corporation with regard to face masks, and that would include Cleveland, Ohio territory, which the Moors are the governors of our territories. There are no others. And so, again, we're going to peacefully enforce the sovereign supreme law of the land, and it's okay to use these things to enforce the supreme law of the land. So, because according to Article 6, they are all laws made by the state to the contrary are notwithstanding, but the ones that are not to the contrary, they are withstanding as long as the sovereigns say they're withstanding. And when the sovereigns say they're not withstanding anymore, they're not. Okay, it's according to the command of the sovereign, moorishe American national, by bloodline and birthright. This says the requirement to wear a facial covering does not apply when, and then I went all the way down here to I, and it says facial coverings are prohibited by law or regulation. Well, facial coverings are prohibited by law. What's the law? Who's the law? We are the law. That's a who, not a what. We are the law. We are the government. And so if we say facial coverings are prohibited, that's what they are. But again, the heirs can download these, and in each and every one of these quote unquote directives, there will be something that the heirs can use that they can enforce. It's a prime opportunity to say that even though we're not under these directives, you are under these directives if we say you are, in terms of using it however we want to use that directive. And we're using it to say, it actually presents an opportunity for us to say that these citizens are under the authority of the heirs, and the Constitution is what they are to obey. And the Constitution for them that we're enforcing on them says that all laws made by the state to the contrary are notwithstanding, and by the same token, we are saying that any codes and statutes that fit with what we are doing and saying in our own territory, we're going to use that as well. And we're going to say, you got to follow that because we said so. And it's not a matter of just because we said so, it's a matter of we're the law, okay? We're the government. So that is pretty much the summation of the demonstration that I've been doing in my territory, and it's been highly, highly, highly successful. I've not had to, and the places that I've enforced this, when I go back in there again, for example, these grocery stores, etc., I usually don't have to enforce it again. Okay, once I speak the law, and then we've also placed on the public record a universal sovereign supreme law that says that we're enforcing the Constitution and that face masks and face coverings are not mandatory on our land, because we know we're not a part of the United States Corporation Company. That's not even land, okay? It does not exist in that manner. So that's all that I have for now. Moors, get out there into the territory. This is a really prime time to enforce the sovereign supreme law for the land. The demonstration is right there for you to do. Go ahead and take an opportunity to peacefully do it. Clear your energy beforehand, okay? And get and get your energies in alignment. As you know, it's easy for us to do because the ancestors are within us. Get our energies in alignment and then go, go, go. And be the law and be the government, because that is what we are by bloodline and birthright on our own land. This is going to make the transition that much easier for us, okay? And for those who are on our land lawfully. And I do want to say in closing that we are in full decolonization mode. Full decolonization mode. And what does that mean? Decolonization mode means that we are anyone who's on our land that is not here lawfully has to go. Okay? Anyone who's not here lawfully has to go. Anyone who is here lawfully and who has agreed to follow the consented to subject status and agreed to follow the sovereign supreme law for the land, then that's a different story. They're going to be in subject status here, and that is what they should be in. So, but full decolonization mode, that's where we are right now. And so this is a part of that, where the heirs are getting out and ensuring that everyone knows that we're decolonizing our land and we are the government. We're governing, we're the law, etc. So you need look no further. For government and for law, we're right here. We've not gone anywhere, and we're not going anywhere. Been here for trillions of years, and we're going to stay here and enjoy our vast estate. Peace and grand rising to the heirs. Keep up the great work. We're making so much progress, and the ancestors are with us. So with that, peace and grand rising.